Hey guys, I haven't made a video for a while, so I thought I would try to do it now that I have a little bit of time. One thing I wanted to talk about was the topic of tipping, because a lot of my students are confused about tipping and they don't really understand this culture that we have around tipping and how much they should tip. And I'm talking now about living in the United States and tipping service workers, right? So especially at restaurants, coffee shops, but also in the situation of like a taxi or an Uber, or maybe even like getting a haircut, or I don't know, any other kind of service that you might have, like delivery food, anything like that. And I also want to talk about the expression, just to work on your English a little bit, all set. So this is a really common phrase that we say when we're in a restaurant, that people say when they're in a restaurant, and a waiter might come up to you and say, all set? And this is confusing for some students because they don't understand what all set means. All right, so did you figure out what all set means? All set is basically another way to say, are you ready? So when a waiter or waitress comes to your table and you're looking at your menus and everybody's looking at what they want to order, oftentimes the waiter will come to the table and say, all set? And sometimes they'll say, are you all set? But basically it just means, are you ready to order? Sometimes you'll also see this at the end of the meal. Like they will say, if you're finished eating and your plates are sitting there empty, they'll say all set, and that means, are you ready for me to take your plates away? And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was tipping. So this culture of tipping is really important in the United States. And I know some of my international students are confused about how much they should tip. I would say the general rule of thumb, which rule of thumb means like the general rule that you can follow. It means for tipping is about 20%, especially for meals where you sit down. But I would say it also depends on the service, right? So with Uber drivers, I definitely would say 20%. So for example, when I have an Uber that costs about $15, I will tip about $3. And then the reason why I do this is because I know how hard service work is in the United States and how little those workers actually make per hour. The minimum wage is increasing, but traditionally it has been quite low. So those workers depend on those tips to survive. My mother was a waitress and my father was a carpenter for almost my whole life. And I know that my mother survived on those tips. She paid for our food with that little money that she would bring home every night. We would get our lunches with that money. And then my father was an Uber driver for a while, so I know how difficult that job is and also how important the tipping is. Those service workers really appreciate that. So that's really important. I know in your country, if you're an international student, you may not understand this culture of tipping, but in the United States, it's very important, and it really shows respect, and it shows that you care about the work that you are paying, that you're paying someone for, right? Like food delivery, all that kind of stuff. So I'll give you some more websites that you can look at about tipping and also about the minimum wage in the United States. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.